Before there was Squid Game and arriving after Battle for Dream Island, there was a show where a bunch of inanimate objects compete for $1 million called Inanimate Insanity. The contestants on the show have been through a lot together, whether if it's competing in life-threatening challenges, even if they mostly get recovered, or straight up killing a Steve Jobs parody corn man. With that being said, how would they feel about competing in a Squid Game if it meant no one gets recovered? That's what we're about to find out today. So, I'm going to take all the contestants who have competed in Inanimate Insanity, the hosts, and some minor characters I threw in for good measure to see how well they would do in this competition. I'm Corpse Prime.
And I'm the announcer from BFDI.
And join us to see which Inanimate Insanity character would win Squid Game. Please welcome our following contestants: MePhone 4, MePad, MePhone 4S, Toilet, OJ, Taco, Paper, Pickle, Bow, Apple, Marshmallow, Bomb, Paintbrush, Salt, Lightbulb, Pepper, Balloon, Nickel, Knife, Baseball, Suitcase, Test Tube, Microphone, Fan, Soap, Cheesy, Yin Yang, Box, Trophy, the cherries counted as one, Tissues, Dough, Cabbie, Silver Spoon, Blueberry, Bot, Candle, The Floor, Goo, Clover, Tea Kettle, Life Ring, Springy, Bookcasey, Steve Cobbs, The Prime Shimmer, Dr. Fizz, Starfruit, Tyler Bombard, and Nickley.
Before we begin this Squid Game, let's go over the ground rules. Number 1, no allies outside of the competition. Number 2, no outside weapons, with the exception of any equipment needed to survive. Number 3, magic powers will be forbidden. Number 4, natural abilities are allowed. With all that said, it's time for our first game, red light, green light. The goal of this challenge is to reach the finish line in 5 minutes. You may move forward when the dial says green light, but you must stop and stay incredibly still when it says red light. If you fail to make it past the finish line, or your movement has been detected, you will be eliminated.
For red light, green light, you'll need the qualities of speed, patience, attentive listening skills, and you'll have to stay brave and calm under pressure, or just simply all the above. This game should be pretty straightforward for most contestants given how almost all of them ran away from a red beam that would permanently kill them. Out of everyone here, The Floor notably has the biggest advantage since he can easily just teleport to the finish line once the game starts.
Close your eyes and take your mind away from here, and then bring it where you want to go, yeah?
Toilet also passes due to his experience following orders from MePhone 4 and MePad when being an assistant.
Excellent work, Toilet. Yeah!
Unlike The Floor, MePad might not be allowed to use his teleportation ability since it could break the no magic rule. But I'm confident enough to believe that he'll do just fine without it this round. And finally, Steve Cobbs has done enough heinous shit in the past.
I'm going to kill you in the most painful way I can.
So witnessing a bunch of people getting shot that he's already killed before wouldn't really shock him in the slightest.
Come on, scream, scream.
Although most contestants should be able to get past the finish line, there are quite a bit of unlucky competitors here. The first character to die in red light, green light would be Salt.
Player 14, eliminated.
Instead of listening to the rules of the game and staying alive, she would seek her opportunity to sexually harass OJ. If Salt goes down, she'll definitely bring her BCFF with her.
Player 16, you have been eliminated.
Pepper would most likely either try to break up Salt and OJ from each other, or mourn heavily from Salt's death. It also doesn't help that Pepper always follows Salt's lead, so they're definitely going to be spilled for this round. Tissues is one of the more obvious characters to die next.
Player 31, eliminated.
Due to how bad his condition is, his sickness would definitely get himself killed, most likely by accidentally sneezing while stopping in place.
My condition is really getting bad, guys.
Soap is going to be the next one to drop. Given how much of a neat freak she is, Soap would immediately freak out when she witnesses the first few people getting shot to death. She would have the huge urge to clean up their corpses.
Ew! Germs! We must eliminate all of them at all costs!
But that only means that she's gonna leave a bigger mess with her carcass. Next, Bookcasey was purposely added in the Season 1 remaster of II to get eliminated immediately before the challenge started. It's all because he made a rude remark about MePhone 4's professional voice.
No, it sounds like crap.
Bookcasey would be the type of person to not be afraid to say that Squid Game is very crappy. Unfortunately for him, this will cost him another early elimination. Man, as much as it sucks that he's gone so soon, but there's no way that Goo is gonna make it out alive.
Player 39, you have been eliminated.
Not only would this game give him intense anxiety, but he is by far the slowest moving contestant. And with the time limit being only 5 minutes, Goo will not have enough time to stick the landing at the finish line.
Okay, that's understandable.
Plus, there's a reason why Cabby carried him to safety when escaping Me Afterlife. Doe was also out for a similar reason.
Player 32, eliminated.
While he may not be as slow as Goo is, he just doesn't have the mobility or speed to make it past the finish line before getting shot to death. And it's also worth noting that he's one of the few characters on this list who died from the red beam in Me Afterlife. The same also applies to Doe's sister, Bo.
Player 9, you are eliminated.
She will probably not take this game seriously in the slightest and think this is all fun and games and make silly remarks about this round. Or she could just go on about how much she loves chairs and whatnot.
What? I thought we were playing musical chairs.
And finally, Lifering and Dr. Fizz both take their jobs as a lifeguard and doctor very seriously, and would not hesitate on checking the victims who were shot to see if they're alright, leaving themselves to get shot without any emergency calls.
40 out of 50 players remain. Let's move on to the next game, Sugar Honeycombs. Players will have to cut out the shape from their cookies. The players who break the cookie or run out of time will be eliminated.
Anyone with patience, steady hands, or legs depending on who you ask, or creativity will have what it takes to carefully carve the dalgona, you know, the Korean cookie. The first clear winner of this round is Testtube, who is a masterful scientist and has loads of experience engineering. If she can build a rocket ship in seconds, she can almost certainly finish this round in a heartbeat. Knife is another clear survivor this round since he really doesn't even need a needle to carve. He can just use his sharp end as a substitute. Candle is also worth noting for not only being one of the most common mellow contestants, but the flame on her head will be very useful for this round since she can use it to heat the tip of the needle to make carving a trickier shape easier, similar to how Han Minil survived when she sneaked in a lighter to heat up her needle. Although nowhere near as patient as Candle is, Paintbrush would also do really well in this round. They may have a short temper, it only really occurs when someone really pisses them off. Besides, everyone would be mostly focusing on themselves, so there really shouldn't be anything distracting Painty's precision, except for Lightbulb, but I'm sure Painty would kindly suggest to focus on herself, at least for this round.
Working individually might be freeing for both of us. Does that make sense?
I got you, girl.
Yin Yang should also be able to make it. If this Squid Game took place in, like, say 2013 or 2014, they would almost certainly be dead sooner, given how impatient and chaotic Yang is. Thankfully for the both of them, since Yin and Yang learned to get along with each other over time, they have developed a new ability where one side can take full control of their body.
I was hoping maybe I could be in control for this. Fine, but we better win, and no stupid names. Deal! Thanks, Yang.
For this round, it would have to be Yin who would help carry him and Yang to safety, since he's much calmer and patient than Yang is. Two other surprising survivors are two of the armless contestants, Baseball and Suitcase. They've been shown to paint really well with their legs, so they could probably do the same when carving the cookie with their legs. Even if Suitcase's anxiety overwhelms her, I'm sure one of her friends, Knife or Balloon, are able to check up on her just for a random act of kindness. And finally, you may think this is the round where Toilet flushes away. May I remind you that this man used hedge clippers to cut MePhone 4's maze without any arms.
Now that's impressive!
Now let's talk about this round's losers. First, while the floor was able to easily clear red light, green light, the same can definitely not be said for this round.
Player 38, you are eliminated.
To simply put, he has no limbs to work with. He's stuck in the floor. There's literally nothing he can do here.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
The next obvious contestant to say goodbye is our man MePhone 4.
Player 1, eliminated.
He was gonna carve the cookie, but he's a fat slob, so he ate it. As for a less obvious elimination, Trophy is next to say goodbye.
Player 29, you have been eliminated.
He is shown to be really lazy, and he would probably try to force someone to do his dirty work just like how he blackmailed Knife. However, since Trophy already has enough enemies, this would not go well for him at all.
I'll go jump up a bridge.
Nickel is next to die since he's most frequently seen in a rather negative mood when competing in challenges. He also lacks the artistic skills and precision like how other armless contestants like Baseball and Suitcase do. Nickel is also very impatient and would likely try to rush carving the cookie only to break it in the process. Another likely character to break the cookie would be Tyler Bombard.
Player 49, eliminated.
Since Tyler's hands are noticeably huge, he's gonna have the hardest, well, second hardest time trying to hold the needle to carve the cookie. And the final character to bomb in this round is Bomb.
Player 12, eliminated.
For no other reason, his stutters would likely interfere with his precision if he chooses to ramble about carving the cookie.
34 players remain. Now for our next game, Sixlegged Pentatholon. Players are divided into teams of 5 and must take turns completing all the mini-games. All 5 members of the team must advance around the track with their legs tied together. Each team member must complete one game. If a game is not completed, it must be tried again until it is finished. Players who are unable to find a team or any team that has failed to cross the finish line with all 5 games completed will be eliminated.
So here are the following mini-games. There's Dakchi, flip over a red paper card on the ground by throwing a blue card onto it. Flying Stone, throw a stone at another stone and knock it down. Gongi, also known as Korean Jacks, toss a stone, pick up another, and catch the tossed stone. Spinning Top, wind a fiber thread around the bottom half of the spinning top, and then launch it by unwinding the thread to make it spin. And finally, Jeggy, kick the Jeggy with one foot 5 times in a row without letting it touch the ground to pass. For this round, you will need great cooperation skills with others in order to survive. This is the point of the game where alliances would have to be formed. Fortunately for Lightbulb, Paintbrush, Test Tube, and Fan, they by far have the best chemistry with each other and pretty much have got each other's backs no matter what.
I love you guys! I know, I love you too!
And I can't forget about Bot, who is practically Fan and Test Tube's kid. Knife is a very strategic player and would do very well no matter which minigame he is playing. He also would have no problem finding a team due to his many great friendships he has. He could either team up with Microphone and Taco, Suitcase and some of the Sinkers, and hell, he had a great bond with MePhone 4S in the Season 2 finale.
Flamethrower Sandwich!
This is the start of a beautiful friendship.
4S would also 100% be the type of guy to intimidate other people to join his team, and I'm sure Blueberry would also do the same thing.
Join me or suffer the consequences.
Even if he decides to not persuade others to join his side, I'm sure he would be comfortable enough to team up with Candle, whom of which is an excellent team player and would help her friends Silver Spoon and Yin Yang to keep their composure. Cabby would also make a great addition to the team due to her association with Yin Yang, and she probably has the information on how to play each minigame, which will definitely come in handy for her and her team. Clover will definitely get people fighting over who gets to team up with her due to her lucky luck. If Clover's team is full, then I'm sure people would want to try to seek Starfruit, who is a famous musical artist in the II world, and I'm sure he wouldn't have any issues attracting some of his fans.
Hello again to all my fans.
Oh, he's talking about me!
The Cherries would be a very reasonable duo to have on your team due to the whole 2 players counted as one thing, and I'm sure the guards would definitely let each Cherry play their own individual minigame. And finally, Baseball and Suitcase would be shoo-ins for the Jiggy minigame.
Legs!
Honestly, there's quite a lot of alliances and friendships already formed outside of Squid Game that everyone in this game should be able to do just fine. But there are quite a bit of unlucky ones. First, as much as I would rather see him survive a few more rounds only to get absolutely butchered by everyone in the Midnight Brawl, there is no way that anyone's gonna team up with Steve Cobbs.
Player 45, you have been eliminated.
I mean, come on, this is the man who caused genocide just to give MePhone 4 a scare. Even if he tried to manipulate or force someone to join his team, Steve would pretty much be the only person in the room that everyone would straight up avoid teaming up with.
They're still alive?!
Winning Squid Game is so yesterday. Now for a much more upsetting elimination, that being Meatpad.
Player 2, eliminated.
He could have a shot at surviving as many people would gladly team up with him. However, Meatpad hasn't been shown to be skillful or sporty with his legs that would help him survive the Jeggy game. He's also way too nice for his own good to form a team in a life or death situation. Knowing him, he would much rather sacrifice his own life just so some of the underdogs are able to find a team.
I told you not to die for me.
I didn't.
Next, although the Prime Shimmer isn't really hated by anyone, well, except for the Corn of course, he doesn't really have any legs and would probably be one of the few contestants that would get completely singled out, unfortunately. The closest characters I could see the Shimmer King teaming up with are Test Tube and Fan, but they already have Lightbulb, Paintbrush, and Bot to worry about. Springy also lacks legs, but I've also got a feeling that he wouldn't really have a chance to team up with anyone due to how unstable he is, and none of his invitational allies are here to keep him company.
You're going to regret that! I'll just spring right back up to the top!
And finally there's Nick Lay, whom of which is a human. And objects in the Object Show universe are usually put off by humans.
I'm highly offended!
29 players remain. The next game is Mingle. Players are required to stand on a rotating platform in the center of a circular arena. At any moment, a number will be called out. At that point, players will have 30 seconds to get into groups of said number and secure a room for themselves. Any player who doesn't enter a room with the correct number of contestants or fails to secure a room will be eliminated.
To survive this game, you'll need to be speedy, strong, and composed enough to help secure a room for you and your partners. I'll also need to consider which characters would have to worry about protecting each other or to sacrifice their own lives, and which ones are just selfish enough to secure a spot for themselves for the next round. For starters, both MePhone 4S and Blueberry fit into that selfish category, as they have the ruthlessness and strength needed to toss someone out of their rooms, especially Blueberry, who chose to ride a hot air balloon without the II Season 3 finalist just so he can win for himself.
Oh yeah, you're not coming with me, but your blatant pandering was delicious. Bye.
Taco may be a much better person now. She's still somewhat selfish enough to make sure her and Microphone have a spot for the next round. Next, Baseball is by far the heaviest contestant alive and shouldn't have any worries about people pushing him around. Instead, he'd be doing the pushing even if he didn't mean to. And it definitely does not need to be said that Test Tube Fan and Bot would be sticking together. And even if one of them had to separate from each other if the number was called out to be 2, then I'm sure one of their close friends, Paintbrush, would gladly take them under their wings. However, there are some characters that would probably struggle getting into their rooms quick enough without getting shoved or choosing to give up their own lives. Unfortunately for Lightbulb, this is where it's lights out for her.
Player 15, you are eliminated.
Even if she tried to stick with her Bright Lights alliance, Lightbulb is still extremely clumsy and would very likely trip and get herself killed or get shoved out of the way by other contestants. Next, OJ may not be as clumsy as Lightbulb, but he'll still get easily pushed around either to shatter or get spilled. Balloon, Apple, and Box are all light enough to be pushed around, but they would all most likely get eliminated for different reasons. Box would easily get trampled by everyone, Apple's overall confusion of the game's rules and separation from Marshmallow will cost her this round, and Balloon would just get kicked into the air, slowly waiting to come back down.
Hooray!
Now it's time to put out the candle.
Player 37, you have been eliminated.
Her Inner Flame and Sidekick abilities would probably have her sense that the number would be called out to be 2 during the final round, and if that's the case, she would definitely be willing to sacrifice her own life by quickly gathering Silver and Yin Yang to help secure a room for them just so they can live for another day.
Good game, Candle.
Finally, I'm sad personally that he's gone because he is my favorite and I was rooting for him, but Knife isn't making the cut to the next round.
Player 19, eliminated.
He could have easily passed this round if he really wanted to, but the scene in the II movie where he went out of his way to sacrifice his own life for Marshmallow's safety showed us how much of a heart Knife actually has.
I tried to kill her so many times, then I died for her. Life comes at you fast, huh?
So in a scenario like this, he'd probably save some of the physically weaker characters like Marshmallow as previously mentioned and Suitcase during the final round.
Let's not read any patterns into it. You know, it's just a random act of kindness.
We have now reached the halfway point, so now let's recap the surviving contestants. MePhone 4S, Toilet, Taco, Paper, Pickle, Marshmallow, Paintbrush, Baseball, Suitcase, Test Tube, Microphone, Fan, Cheesy, Yin Yang, Cherries, Cabbie, Silver Spoon, Blueberry, Bot, Clover, Tea Kettle, and Starfruit.
We have now reached our final 22. Congratulations to everyone who have made it this far in the competition. Now it's time for everyone to get some rest. Lights out.
Unfortunately, the contestants will not be getting any rest. In Season 2 of Squid Game after each round, the contestants are able to vote whether or not if they want to continue to compete in the competition, wearing a patch of which side each player is on, with the stakes continuing to get raised, and almost everyone is becoming untrustworthy of each other and coming very close to snapping. So now it's time for a good old-fashioned midnight brawl. Now since this is an unofficial bonus round, this is going to be the only time where powers and alike are allowed, so some of the characters are gonna want to hide. Luckily for Paper and his physical flatness, he can pretty much lay as flat as possible and hide underneath the blanket in any of the beds until the carnage is over.
No one will ever know!
Blueberry would also do really well, whether if he chooses to hide, fight, or even hold his breath for a really long time just to make people think that he was beaten to death. It hardly needs to be said that MePhone 4S and Yin Yang both are incredibly chaotic and destructive, and have little to no problems killing other people when the opportunity arises.
Is it deathly in players, especially when people die?
To make a long story short, yes.
Given how they are a literal heatwave spreading hothead, Paintbrush will make sure no one would be dumb enough to even think of pissing them off, so much so that even some of the other deadly foes like Yin Yang and 4S would have to stay clear of them.
That's enough. okay?
Silver Spoon would do really well this round since he has the ability to enhance his physical strength. Like, he literally punched a shark possibly into orbit. Since he could do that to anyone if he really wanted to, he's gonna be by far the biggest threat in this round.
You never know what someone will do under pressure.
Baseball is a tank and has legs powerful enough to set a soccer ball on fire. If anyone in the room even has the guts to call him fat, they're pretty much asking for a death sentence.
I'm not fat!
Some other characters with strong friendships would have to worry about protecting each other, with Microphone, Taco, and Fan, Bot, and even Cabby being some examples. But wait, you might have noticed that I didn't mention Test Tube as one of Bot's protectors. Well, that's because she's one of the first characters to say goodnight.
Player 22, eliminated.
Since her being made out of glass is going to make things incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to defend herself. The same also applies to Tea Kettle, who might draw on some assailants who are disgusted when directly facing her.
But anything can look frightening from the wrong angle.
Tea Kettle, please never directly face anyone again. Ooh.
Although not as fragile, Marshmallow and the Cherries are still one of the lightest and puniest contestants still left in the running, so they would be the most likely candidates to be tossed around easily by the stronger contestants, even with two cherries attached to each other. Next, Pickle is one of the lankier contestants who just doesn't have the strength or defensive capabilities like how other taller contestants Paintbrush and Baseball do. Even though I don't think that's his biggest concern, I can't help that he would most likely be MePhone 4S's biggest target.
I hate you. That's why I poisoned your cookie. Prepare to die in 4 seconds.
Hey, that's...
And the last characters to die are Toilet and Cheesy.
Players 4 and 26, eliminated.
I can't help that both of these characters would get themselves killed for drawing a lot of attention to themselves for different reasons. Toilet would most likely be instigating the fight out of concern of the contestants, and Cheesy cannot stop himself from trying to start fights with other people who criticize his jokes.
You think you're funnier than me, Knife? Why, I oughta...
Good morning, everyone. With 15 players remaining, it's time for the next game, Marbles. In this game, using your set of 10 marbles, you will play the game of your choice with your partner. The player who manages to take all 10 marbles from their partner wins, and the loser will be eliminated.
In order to win this game, you'll need to have good enough manipulation and gaming skills. This is the game that'll test players to see how ruthless they really are. Now, since we have an uneven amount of players, only one player would have to be spared for this round, and that person would most likely be MePhone 4S, since almost everyone would be very intimidated and skeptical to team up with him at this rate. Unfortunately for 4S, he probably would be pissed that he won't get a chance to screw anyone over in a game that he sees as deadly and hilarious, especially when people die. Now I'm gonna go over each pair and determine who wins in the game of marbles. First up, we have Silver Spoon and Blueberry. Both of these characters are extremely egotistical and have no problems tricking other players to advance further in the competition. But if you ask me, Blueberry is a much bigger mastermind. I mean, this is the guy who tricked everyone around him by faking a murder scene just so he can rejoin Inanimate Insanity Invitational.
Start clapping.
Blueberry definitely has a lot more tricks under his blue sleeves than Silver does, so this is where the royal advisor is royally screwed.
You backstab!
Next, Baseball and Suitcase would probably team up due to their experience as an alliance, and they would probably want a fair match with each other. But Suitcase is more usually prone to making difficult decisions for herself, but commits to it anyways.
Nickel, I voted for you tonight.
Excuse me?
And I can't forget to bring up that time that Suitcase brutally killed Steve Cobbs by tricking him with a grenade instead of an egg. So I think this is where Baseball officially strikes out.
Player 20, eliminated.
And I really don't think he has any guts to betray Suitcase like that, even if he tried.
I don't want to make you any more anxious than you already are.
While Taco was an excellent manipulator, I mean, after all, she did lie about her identity in Season 1.
Did you honestly think that I was that half-witted? I merely pretended to be an idiot, not to be seen as a threat, and to make the viewers like me more.
She does, however, regret her wrongdoings and would feel extreme guilt if she does end up betraying Microphone. She may not be a perfect person. Taco indeed has a heart, but not as big as a heart as Fan does.
Players 6 and 24, eliminated.
I really don't think I need to explain why he would absolutely refuse to win the game if it left Bot dying. At least he can see Test Tube in the afterlife now.
See ya, Test Tube.
Next, it's amazing how far they made it, but this is the end of the road for Yin Yang.
Player 27, you are eliminated.
While I've got a feeling that their partner Cabby would be willing to give up their spot in return for their elimination in Season 3, this could go either way. But I think Yin Yang would decline Cabby's offer and would want to play a fair game with her, even if they're nowhere near on the same level of intelligence as her.
Yang and I had a personal victory, and that is worth celebrating.
Now since Painty's two friends are already paired up together, they would probably be left to pair up with their former Team Epic teammate Paper. But I think Paintbrush has the edge here since they're more actively competitive. So this is where Paper falls flat.
What?
So that leaves Starfruit to be stuck with Clover. I think you all know for sure who's gonna win this.
Player 48, eliminated.
Even if Clover tried to throw the game, since she is scared of hurting others with her luck abilities are always gonna protect her from harm. And I really don't think Starfruit is the type of guy to screw anyone over, let alone his fans.
We've reached our final 8. Now it's time for the penultimate game, Class Stepping Stones. Players will select their jersey numbers that determine the order they play. After that, the contestants will have to try to cross the 2 parallel bridges by jumping on the tempered glass panel and avoiding the weaker panels of regular glass.
Fortunately for the contestants who chose the highest numbers, they will have a great chance of passing this round after the many glass panels have been shattered by other players. Unfortunately for the contestants who have the egos or the optimism to pick the lowest numbers, they would almost certainly seal their dooms. For this version of the game, only 2 people will have to make it this round. So instead of talking about the person who obviously passes in flying colors with their lucky number 7 jersey, let's go over each elimination in order. First, Blueberry is very cocky and egotistical for his own fault.
Player 35, you have been eliminated.
He generally believes he's above everyone, so he would be optimistic enough to quickly scoop that number 1 jacket without any hesitation, only leaving him to be blueberried in his own grave.
Way to blow it.
Next, Paintbrush is the second most competitive person left in the running after Blueberry, and they would probably want to get this game over with without thinking about the huge risk of choosing a low number, which spells their doom. The next people to go are Bot and Suitcase.
Players 21 and 36, you are eliminated.
These two would probably be stuck with the numbers relatively close to the middle, and it doesn't help that both of these guys are very paranoid contestants overall, and the pressure of the penultimate game would be way too much for them to handle. Especially Suitcase, this type of game would give her the biggest anxiety attack of her life, and given how she's the only armless contestant remaining, she most likely would be stuck with the last jersey. Next, MePhone4S is officially terminated.
Player 3, eliminated.
He would 100% be the type of guy to try to scoop a later number and sit back and laugh at the players in front of him die for his own amusement. However, he wasn't quick or smart enough to consider staying further behind like the final 3 did. As for the last elimination, it was a tough call for who gets to join Clover in the finals between Microphone and Cabby, but ultimately, I've made my decision to say that Microphone will be the last person to fall.
Player 23, eliminated.
Mike would be wise enough to carefully choose a later number where she doesn't go first or last, but only one person got the chance to observe Clover's luck abilities and decided to scoop that number 8 jersey. And before you ask, yes, Cabby can jump.
We've reached our final 2. Congratulations to Cabby and Clover. Now it's time for the final round. Get ready for the Squid Game.
So, here's the rules. 2 players, or more often 2 teams, must go up against each other where one player is an attacker and one player is a defender. The attacker must enter the court and do everything they can to get around a defender to secure a win by placing their foot onto the squid's head, while the defender must do everything they can to stop the attacker. Or at least, this is how Squid Game is traditionally played. For this case, it's more of a death battle. For starters, Cabby is, well, a heavy file cabinet. She has some experience attacking others with not necessarily her arms, but with her bottom drawer, and that drawer is actually pretty strong as shown when she used it to push Springy off a giant floating cereal box at full speed. And not to mention, a single body slam from a file cabinet could straight up kill someone. Now as for Clover, she's got her luck powers that helped carry her throughout this competition, but even with all that luck, does she have any chance of defeating Cabby? Well, to be honest, she's never been shown to really have any fighting experience whatsoever, and I'm sure Clover wouldn't even have the guts to hurt Cabby in the slightest. She already had enough problems in the past where she believed her luck was hurting others.
Doesn't matter. Here I thought I'd finally stop ruining lives. But instead, I ended them all.
She does have her butterflies, but I'm not so confident that the guards would let the butterflies help Clover since this is, after all, a one-on-one fight. Even if neither opponent wanted to kill each other, I'm sure that Clover would likely give up the prize and spread her luck powers to Cabby, and then proceeds to take off with her butterflies.
Let's fly! Until next time!
So with that said, Cabby has filed a win for the Inanimate Insanity Squid Game. Congratulations!
What? No.
Your winner, everyone! Woohoo!
As for your prize, since you already have a library, I think it would make the most sense to have an office right beside it. Thank you so much for joining me today, Speakery.
No problem. Thank you for not executing me this time.
Okay, you take care now. Anyways, let me know in the comments below if you agree with anything and who you think, in your opinion, would win Squid Game. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe for more Inanimate Insanity content in the future. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.